how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. Before we get into the questions from last week's videos, I did want to announce the winners of the HoseLink hose reel, which that video went out a week before last. So there was actually quite a number of days to enter that contest.
Yeah, there was.
I don't know who HoseLink's winners were because they picked out 2 as well, but I'm guessing that they announced them on their own. So the winners that came from our YouTube comment section were Leah Leclerc. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, and Chris Roberts. Congratulations to the both of you guys. I hope you really enjoy your HoseLinks. Okay, so we're just gonna jump into the videos. We didn't have as many this last week. We skipped 2 days in a row. That felt so weird.
No, we took a weekend off.
We did. We skipped posting on Saturday. And you guys, if we ever randomly skip a day, because we always skip Sundays on our main channel, but if we skip another day of the week due to whatever circumstances, I always post that in our YouTube's community section. So that's where that goes. So if you're ever wondering, like, did they die? Are they still alive?
That's super morbid.
Where is it weird that my mind went
today? I wonder if they're dead.
Well, when you do it for so long, like so consistently, you never know. Anyways, let's get into the videos. First one was found an awesome deal on topiaries to replace some dead ones. So I went down to my parents' garden center first. Of course, I always check down there first, and I always recommend checking your local garden center first for things, especially this time of year. Like, it's slower, of course, for garden center this time of year. My parents' garden center is usually really, really full, and it's still, there's a lot of beautiful things, but when you're looking for matching things, especially topiaries, that's a really unique thing to find this late in the season. So I didn't find them there, but I also needed to go to Home Depot because I needed to pick up some deadweed brew. Bonide's, Captain Jack's deadweed brew, because we ran out, and box stores and online are the only places you can get that product right now because it's brand new.
I don't even think you can get it online. I think it's only in store at Home Depot.
Which is weird. Why did they start with Home Depot?
Well, I think
is it like a test?
I want to say it had something to do with the fact that it was just like brand new and they couldn't roll it out to everyone, so they had to roll it out to someone. And Home Depot was maybe like just there and waiting and wanting it or something. I don't know. There's probably a bunch of contractual obligations. You know how it is with things like that.
It's a little while usually before independent garden centers get their hands on it. But anyway, when I went down to Home Depot, I got the deadweed brew. They had 3 bottles, which was awesome. And then I picked up a couple of terracotta pots. When I was going back to return my cart, after I loaded my stuff up, I saw a whole, like 2 pallets full of topiaries at 50% off. That's what I needed. And I walked right past them before, like, I did my whole shopping trip and didn't even see them. Anyway, they're a little tiny bit rough, and it doesn't matter though. I picked them up anyway, trimmed them up when we got them home, repotted my stuff, and they're doing great so far. So top comment was from Samantha, 9 p.m. here in Australia, and I couldn't miss this. I'm going through chemotherapy at the moment, and your channel brings me so much joy. Thanks, Laura. Please keep up the amazing work. Thank you so much, Samantha. Wishing you the very, very best. That is a bummer. I hate to hear that. But I'm thankful that our channel is serving as something that brings joy. That makes me happy. That makes me feel like, I don't know, above all else, I hope it does that for a few people. Bucket List on a Budget said, what kind of evergreen were those topiaries? So the ones that came out of the containers were Serbian spruces, and the ones that went in were Spartan junipers. So the Serbian spruce, it was kind of sad. They were getting to a point where I was going to start considering putting them out in the landscape, because usually I want to say like just 2, 3, like max 4 years putting an evergreen in a container. I don't know, I feel like after that point you need to get them out into the landscape so they have room for their roots and so they stay happy. I mean, topiaries generally though, those things that you're keeping trimmed, can stay in containers a lot longer than something that wants to get hugely enormous. But I think something happened in the wintertime. I mean, both of those Serbian spruces had exactly the same kind of damage, and I think what happened is that they were in, the pots that they're in are actually plastic. They're not terracotta, so there's hardly any insulation, and it didn't get super cold, but it was super dry and it was very windy, and I don't think that they got enough water. I think they dried out and then it just burned the foliage because the foliage didn't have enough moisture in it. So yeah, I just wasn't on point this winter because I was like hugely pregnant. And anyway, yeah. Janie said, Are the terracotta planters plastic or clay? So the ones that the topiaries went into were the plastic ones. The ones I bought are actual real terracotta, which I do normally prefer, not because like those look pretty darn good. Those came from Crescent Garden, right, Aaron? Yeah, and I think that they look great. I really like the shape of them.
It's called the Brunello, I think.
Is it? Brunello? But the one downside, unless you get big containers, which those are pretty good size, and I don't put any filler in them, it's all soil. But plastic tends to be a little bit light around here, and so we tend to put tall things in and it wants to topple them over. So I've always kind of preferred heavier, thick things where I don't have to worry about that quite as much. Peggy says, I can't see the link for the sharpener. I wonder if Home Depot has it. Can we put a link for that sharpener I was using for my Felcos?
I put a link for it.
Oh,
it's like the 90 something. I'm like almost 100% sure that I put a link. Okay,
so you're 99% sure.
Hold on. Let me confirm.
Either way, we'll put a link below this video in the comment section to that sharpener.
Yeah, it's the fourth thing down, and it says sharpener right under Felco 2 pruners.
Okay.
It's there.
Can we transfer that over to the description of this video? Jill said, did you add anything to increase the acidity of the soil for the potted maple? No, I did not. I used fresh potting soil, so it should be good for a little while, but thanks for the reminder. I probably will add soil acidifier. In fact, I have an alarm on my phone just about ready to go off. Not today, but let's see. Monday the 9th, I need to add soil acidifier to my blueberry container. So I'll probably just get that pot on the same schedule as my blueberries. So August 9th will be when it gets the acidifier. Rhonda said, when the petunias had grown together in the flat, would they have flushed back out if you would have given them a hard prune before you planted them in a container? I had explained I put some Bordeaux supertunias in those containers initially, and when I planted them, they looked kind of poorly. It was later on in the season. I took this, it was a gorgeous flat full of Bordeaux, but it was so grown together. They'd been in that flat for so long and hadn't been separated out and kind of like given enough airflow and light that they looked great all together, but when you pull them apart, they were really leggy. And yes, they would have benefited from a hard prune at that point. And I did not do that. Sometimes, like another flower bed, which I'll show you sometime this week probably, we had a bunch of those type of plants that we put in the ground, and they looked bad for like, what, 3 weeks?
Really bad. Did we take a picture of it though?
I don't even think we did, because we were kind of like,
this is all gonna die.
This is bad. But they all look really good. It just takes them some time. Was that funny, Benjamin? What are you watching over there? Danielle said, why did you switch from Burnout to the Captain Jack's Dead Weed Brew? Well, one, it was a brand new product that we wanted to try out, and two, it works better. Don't you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I do.
Like, I think it works better. So, yeah, part of it was curiosity, and part of it was because it's a good product. Stacy said, okay, Symmetry Gal, where's the other curtain for the chicken coop door? I do have a second curtain. So a gal sewed those curtains for us and sent them over, and I put the first one up. I don't know why I didn't put the second one on the door. Maybe I was thinking it was unneeded. I have it somewhere. It's in the house in one of our closets. I just need to go get it. But for the time being, it was like one of those 105-degree days, and I thought I gotta get something on this window, so I just grabbed the nearest burlap sack, and it's one I used to spray paint some stuff on at one time. So there's like big black like stains on it. I don't know. It doesn't look the best, but that's kind of my life. Don't you feel like, Aaron? It's like I so much want to have that like coordinated. I have seating spaces that look really good all the time, and it's just not my life. I just like can't. I can get it together about like 90% of the way.
Oh, I don't know. I think you do a pretty good job.
85% of the way. And then there's that last little bit where the details just kind of fall through the cracks, and I don't know. Inspector said, you just removed a wasp nest. What? How do you even know how to do that? Is it a farmland thing? It wasn't a very big one. Like it involves a little bit of like you clip it with your clippers and you do one of these things as you're running away, trying to like hit these wasps away from you. That's kind of what it looks like. That's why we didn't include it in the video.
Your dad has the worst luck with wasps.
He gets stung a ton every year.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you'll see him. Like this one time, they had this old church pew out somewhere in their yard. I don't know why they had it. Anyway, they would make nests underneath, and my dad would get 2 things of wasp spray and get on his back on the ground and like get himself positioned underneath this church pew just the right and you could just see like the bottom half of his body sticking out. And we always just laugh because he just always had this war with wasps, and he got stung every time he tried to be like real stealth. But anyway. Sarah said, I was surprised that you could trim the topiaries with that heat. I thought you'd have to wait till cooler weather. Is that because of the type of evergreen? Not necessarily. I think, I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm questioning our topiary trimming time here in the high desert, because we have such volatile weather, it seems like. In the spring, when it's a good time to trim topiaries and boxwood based on everybody's recommendations, it's so windy for us, and it can heat up like that. Like it can go from 60 to 100 degrees, it seems like, in a span of 2 days. And it's sometimes unexpected, and it feels like every time we trim our boxwoods, they get nailed by some kind of weird thing, and then they turn brown, and then they're brown for the rest of the season. And then you're like, yes, it's time to trim again. I can trim like really late summer, early fall when it starts to cool off a little bit. And you trim all that dead brown off, and then all of a sudden those cooling temperatures that you've had, like you have another heat wave right after. It's just, so I've been testing some trimming out like midsummer. We have had smoke cover, which is like super
Probably
unfortunate.
helps.
I hate that we have smoke cover for a lot of different reasons, but it does provide reprieve for our plants, and it's enough of an overcast that it's not, I've been trimming boxwoods and they're not burning. I'm also not trimming deep into their like canopy. So I feel like when they've got really mangy growth like these topiaries had, they're really exposed to a lot of wind and a lot of light, like because they're not dense. And so as long as I'm not cutting into the dense part of the shrub, they've been reacting really well for us. And I'm not spraying, wilt stop hasn't really helped in trimming boxwoods. It helps with evergreens at Christmas time. Like our wreaths stay nice for a lot longer, but we've been testing it out on a lot of different like topiary trimmings. It doesn't help at all. So anyway, I'm kind of like jury's still out on that, but I'm having great luck this summer trimming stuff like in the dead of summer, like the really hot dog days. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. Can you make any tree/shrub a topiary by completely removing sections of foliage and branches, or are there certain varieties that are best? You can pretty much do anything you want to any plant you want. You do want to make sure though that it's a shrub, not like a shrub like a blacklace elderberry, say. I actually bought a couple of blacklace lollipops this spring. We haven't planted them yet. They're still in the high tunnels because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But honestly, I think I'm just going to plant them and let them become a shrub, because it is going to be a maintenance and nightmare. You do want to make sure that whatever you're training isn't something that grows like 10 feet in a year, because that's not ideal for topiary. I mean, you'd be having to trim on that thing all the time. And then anything that naturally wants to be cut back hard in order to perform, like, I don't know, coral berries, they want to be cut back to 12 inches every single late winter, early spring in order to produce a really good crop of berries. So you can't really do that when you have I don't know. I mean, maybe it can be done. Maybe I don't know the fine art of topiary in all the things, but those are just some things I would look out for. I don't know. And I tend to think that topiary evergreens seem to be the best to me, because then you get to see them all year round. I had some pyracantha spirals at one point. Pyracanthas are a shrub, deciduous shrub, that have white blooms in the spring, followed by orange berries in the fall. And I just never really, the fact that they lose their leaves, I'm like, well, there's a dead looking spiral out in my garden right now. I don't know. It just never did it for me. JJ said, I miss Russell and Cheddar. How are they doing? They're doing fine. I think just with the heat, they're naturally like hibernating elsewhere, cooler spots. So they're just not out and about as much as they are when it's cooler. CE Hart said, next year I will be moving and will be switching to planting in containers only. I plan to order the salad bush cucumbers that you had great success with this year. Are there any other small vegetable plants or seeds that you would suggest for container gardening, or could you do a video on your favorite small space veggies and herbs? I think that's a great idea for a video. Do order the salad bush cucumbers though. Honestly, I have 2 of them. Those are my only two cucumber plants. They're about this big each, right here. I mean, they're truly like a bush. And I have over 140 cucumbers from those 2 tiny little plants so far. And I didn't even count, the whole bottom of the stroller is full of cucumbers, because I went out last night with Samantha Grace and I picked them all, and then I haven't picked anything today. Usually every day I've got several I'm picking, so it's crazy. Next video is planting a row of maple trees at our neighbor's house. So just at the bottom of our lane, our neighbors had a big tree that they had just had removed, and I don't know, Erin, you were kind of corresponding with them, and they had questions about what kind of trees we put in, and so it just kind of like evolved into, hey, we'll come plant trees for you. It's fun. It's fun to do something in a different location. That always feeds my soul, just to get out of our own garden a little bit and do something somewhere else. So we planted 5 red point maples, and they're doing really well. They're taking excellent care of them, and they've already reseeded grass in the areas where the old tree was. I'm seeing them out there. Like I see a little sprinkler put on the root ball of each one of the trees. It's going really low, just to do a really nice deep soak. I love it. So they were the top comment. Outside in Oregon, they said, "Thank you guys so much. We love our new trees. I can't tell you how grateful we are to have you do this for us. We are so excited to watch them grow and enjoy their shade and fall colors. You guys are incredibly kind and generous. Thank you so much, Mike and Kathleen, the neighbors." So that was really sweet.
Very nice.
You are most welcome. It really was fun for us. Dorothy said, "Beautiful trees. Do they go to seed? Those helicopters drive me crazy. I've never had a red point produce the helicopters. Have you noticed them?"
I have never seen.
I've never seen them.
Never seen.
I can't find, though, on any information where it says they're sterile.
Right.
So I'm not.
You're always kind of wondering, like, is it going to?
Are we going to have a year? Usually they'll produce them if they're really stressed out, but we have a couple stressed out red points. Mm-hmm. They're not producing them.
Right.
We do have that dang maple by our back shade porch. It's so unfortunate that's a nice tree. I kind of wish it was starting to die somehow, because it's huge and it produces beautiful fall color and beautiful shade, but it is such a pain. Those helicopters fly around all year. They don't just dump them once a year. It's a constant issue.
Yep.
So I feel you on those things. Rachel said, "How close is your current property to your old house?" As the crow flies.
As the crow flies, maybe 2 miles or less.
Yeah.
Not far.
5 minutes drive.
Yeah.
At the most.
Right.
Yeah, very close. Christina said, "Do you call utilities before you dig in areas like that?" You definitely should.
We did. Twice, actually.
Well, yeah, I was just going to...
Oh, sorry.
It's cool. Fortunately, they just had that tree removed. So they had all the paint lines. They had to have dig line come out and mark everything anyway. Do you have anything to add to that, Erin?
Nope, that was it. That was all I had.
Okay. Celeste said, "What is the plant at the end of the video behind the boxwoods, the tan grassy one? I'm obsessed with the texture of it." That is an avalanche calamagratis. So that was in our old garden, and it's a type of Carl Forrester is the really popular one that has green leaves, and then they get the tan colored seed heads on them. The avalanche, it could be, I think it's avalanche. It's green with a white variegation, so white stripe up the leaves, and I picked that on purpose because I had the green boxwoods right behind, and I wanted something with a little bit of variation. So that's what it is, avalanche calamagratis, feather reed grass. Your next door gardener said, "Why do you plant trees and shrubs in the heat of summer? I'm in Pennsylvania, and almost every grower will tell you to plant in the spring or fall to lessen stress. Don't you get nervous?" Yep. It's not ideal, but it is our job. So we do kind of lull on planting, though. We kind of shift to maintenance, harvest, and then planting seeds. Like I planted fall crops this morning. You'll see that video here shortly. It's in the same shirt as I was this morning. And look at this. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
See how dirty my knees are? Anyway, I don't change because I'm just going to go out and get dirty again. Anyway, but we do continue to plant a little bit. Really, the name of the game is just keeping them moist. They're going to be in those little containers anyway. So I feel like they're better off nursery container versus in the ground. They're better off in the ground. It's way easier to moisture control them. And they're less likely to fall down and get broken limbs and such. Gati said, "How did you guys come up with the name Garden Answer?" Oh, do you remember that process?
Yes.
That was
process of elimination. That's how we did it.
It wasn't because we liked the name. In fact, I'm like, oh, it needed to have an S on the end, but there was some other company with Garden Answers. Mm-hmm. A lot of people still add the S. It's kind of like Starbucks and Starbucks.
Yeah.
They just naturally add the S. But yeah, we couldn't find a name that wasn't taken.
Right.
And on Garden Answer at that time wasn't taken on we needed to make sure it was open on several platforms.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, we couldn't use our last name. We could have maybe used your maiden name, but we couldn't use my last name because nobody would know how to say it or spell it, and so that really matters when it comes to search optimization because if people can't spell your last name, they'll never be able to find you again. Mm-hmm. Maybe they saw you once, but that's the end.
Yeah.
So that was limiting. And then I kind of wanted it to have the word garden in it.
Kind of necessary.
So, man, I typed into YouTube and Gmail and then websites. And I just like found a combination where I could get like the Gmail address and the website. Actually, you know what? We couldn't even get the website at
We
first.
had to buy it.
We had to buy it later on down the road. We got gardenanswer.net at the very beginning. And you know what? Like when we first started doing this, we had like 5 subscribers,
Yeah,
right?
it wasn't like a big deal or anything.
And so I wasn't even, you know, I wanted the website, but if I didn't get it, I wasn't going to spend money on it because it was nothing what we were doing. But then down the road, maybe like a year or so, I got like a notification or something that I searched for it randomly and it was available for $1,000.
Oh.
And I did not want to spend $1,000, but I could kind of see that like,
We kind of needed
things were going like up.
And we didn't want somebody to raise the price on it.
Yeah, we were getting views on our videos, and I thought, man, yeah, it could only get worse from here. I should just spend $1,000. And you know what? At the time, like we didn't have kids. And we had more expendable income, I guess. So we were just putting everything we had into Garden Answer.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you imagine if Garden Answer wouldn't have gone anywhere? Like how much money we would have just wasted on the whole endeavor? Because I was buying cameras and you were buying plants.
You know what, though? It was a bonding experience.
I guess.
You can't put a price on our relationship.
Do you know what, though? We weren't having even that great of a time. Like, don't you think now, when we film videos, it's so much better than it used to be?
Yeah.
Because you would get frustrated at yourself for not, like, getting the words out the way you wanted to, and you felt stiff.
Well, and vulnerable. Oh, mercy.
And you still feel a little bit of that, but it's not anywhere near what it used to be. Like, it wasn't like when we were filming that we were really having like a super great time. We were just getting it done, man.
Yeah, it's true. that is true. I do remember though, us sitting around in your parents' living room. Remember, all of us, like all your family members were there, and we were all trying to think of a name. Everybody was on their device, their computers, like trying to find names that were available, and we couldn't find anything.
And was it Liam or Livy that was suggesting?
It was Liam.
Liam said we should do Dead End Media or something like that.
He didn't think it's because we lived on a dead end street. So he's like, you should just name it Dead End Media. And all of us were like, like not really the name you want to have. But.
Right. Well, in hindsight, maybe it would have been even better. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Country Girl 1955 says, you mentioned about bindweed taking over a perennial garden. What did you use to get rid of it? I have it all through my front lawn and have been pulling it for a few years with no luck. What can I use on the lawn to get rid of it? Captain Jack's Dead Lawn Weed Brew. Mercy. I mean, one of these days tell it wrong.
Or if you really have to, the deadweed brew. I mean, if you're looking for an organic option.
Yeah, it'll kill your grass, though, the deadweed. The lawnweed won't kill your grass, but the deadweed does work better. I should caveat and say that you do need to read the instructions because there's different rates you can mix it at. So don't get the RTU if you're trying to kill noxious weeds like that. Get the concentrate so you can mix it yourself at the highest percentage rate, which is like 9. It could be 12. I'm not real sure. Anyway, check the label, mix it at the highest rate, and then that is what has been working for us. Tony said, you guys, for shame, where was the monster DeWalt and auger? We didn't want to make a mess, though auger does make quite a mess when you aug those holes.
Right.
We also didn't know, like we knew where electric and all of those things were, but we didn't know where sprinkler lines were. Exactly.
You can give a lot more finesse with a
shovel. In fact, we did run into a metal pipe. We kind of figured later on it could look like it had been sheared off at some point.
Yeah.
But it was in there solid.
Well, we ran into another pipe too, another poly pipe.
Oh, that's right.
That was probably a sprinkler line.
The auger would have snapped that thing so fast.
And then we would have
had a huge break, and it was hot. And I think I was like kind of impatient with the process that morning.
Well, remember, we had the trailer hooked up because I didn't want to make a mess. We wanted to every shovel full. I wanted to put it in the trailer so that we
take that good dirt back down to our house.
Yeah. It was good dirt too.
It was, except for that one spot.
Yeah.
And it was the spot with the pipe.
Right.
MS Maddox said, what are the hydrangeas right behind you in the beginning of the video? They're huge and gorgeous. I think it was standing in front of the Incrediballs. There's a hedge by our kind of fireplace area. Incredible hydrangeas. They've done really well for us. They need a ton of water to keep them nice, so I'm considering pulling them because I feel like it's a little bit of an irresponsible choice for us. The paniculators do not require the kind of water those do. And that rainstorm we got a huge rainstorm this weekend, which was like, oh, it was so awesome. We got a little over an inch, I think, which we get like somebody was telling me 7 to 10 inches, not 9 to 11. Either way, we don't get very much rain in a year, so we got like a good portion of it.
A tenth of the rain that we're going to get all year.
In just like a few hours. And so like the Incrediballs are just on the ground.
They'll probably come back
well,
up. Well,
most of them have kind of popped back up. There's one that's really down. So it's kind of a bummer because the rain did wreck some of our stuff, but I would rather have the rain and wrecked stuff. Kevin and Adam said, is Aaron a lefty? Probably the reason those scissors weren't working for him, right? Nope.
Yeah, that's the reason.
That is baloney. Okay, next video was planting the most glorious ornamental grasses, and they are. They're totem pole panicums, and I have never in my life received a grass that looks like those. Those came direct from Spring Meadow, didn't they?
No, those are perennials.
Oh, from
Walter's.
Walter's Garden out of Michigan. I don't know why I thought Spring Meadow. Anyway, Walter's Garden sent those out, and those are so gorgeous. I knew we needed to get them in the ground right away because one, they were huge in the cans, and it takes a lot of water to sustain a grass in a can that's that big, and they wanted to topple over every second. So we kind of prioritized getting those in the ground. I've got a bunch more perennials that look really beautiful that I'm going to be planting here soon. But I was just so thrilled with them because they brought some instant interest out there, and it made it look like I want it to look ish. I mean, it's helping, and I want it to be very natural out there, and I want it to be very full, and I want there to be a lot of texture, but I need some big stuff like that. And so anyway, I was just really thrilled with those grasses. So Margaret said, is it possible if Aaron can put the drone up and give us all an aerial view of the whole property? It really would be so lovely to be able to see your dream coming to life and how much further you have gone. Thank you in advance.
I actually took the drone up in that video.
You did?
Yeah, and it never made it into, Ken edited it, and it never made it into the final cut, and I even saw it at the end. So I don't know if there could have been an issue with the footage, that it didn't turn out or whatever, but I'll definitely
we'll pop that in there somewhere. Maybe we could do like a new property tour.
Yeah,
and just dedicate.
You know what would be kind of nice is I've kind of been waiting just a little bit until the grass is
not weedy.
Well, not that it's not weedy, but just kind of like filled in a little bit. I'm okay,
it's
just
looking
green.
So good.
Yeah, it's still just a little sparse. I want to give it like a week maybe, and then I think it'll fill in more. And of course, now we have that little pond out there, which is drying up.
It's drying. Yeah.
It's basically gone at this point, but
we're gonna have reeds starting to grow out there.
Yeah, it's kind of brown though.
Is it?
Just how muddy it was. Yeah.
Well, it just needs. As soon as we haven't turned the water back on because it was such a saturating rain, we didn't have to run water, which is awesome. And then Aaron got on there and with our Garden Answer Highlights channel and wrote, really great video. You're really making that space start to come together. Keep up the good work. What were you doing? You confused some people because some people were like, this is a spam account. I'm reporting it.
Yeah.
That was us. Not us. That was Aaron. That was you.
I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to comment on the video.
Nice. Lisa said, did anyone else giggle when Laura said she might stake those grasses, thinking of the one by the house? Now, Lisa, listen. I am going to go stake those grasses out there, and at the same time, I'll go ahead and stake that one up by the house because I still haven't staked it up. It's looking great.
Yeah, so no need.
No need until it flops over. Actually, is it still looking great?
It probably is not looking great.
I haven't looked at it since the rainstorm.
I'll bet it's all flopped over.
Well, let's be positive here.
I'll bet it's standing straight as an arrow.
I think it probably is. Okay. Amy said, did I miss the name of this grass? Also, is it invasive? How does it spread? I hate grasses that spread with roots that grow laterally under the ground. Does it stay in a clump? As far as I know, it stays in a clump. I've never had a panicum spread out like by rhizomes like that. I haven't grown totem pole for a really long time. I have had a totem pole for a couple seasons in another part of our garden, and it has not spread like that. It's just staying in a clump so far. So yeah. Kathy said, can you give details on the power auger Aaron uses, brand and dealers? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, so I think the one that I was using in that video was the stud and joist drill.
Yeah.
But there's a new one. Greg from Power Planter sent out the new DeWalt concrete mixer drill, which is smaller but has the same amount of power.
It's awesome, you guys, especially for...
Have you used it?
No, but I mean, I felt it. I lifted it, and that stud and joist drill is it's like borderline. Like I can't handle it, and I can handle quite a bit of heft. Maybe not as much as I used to be able to, but that is borderline. Like I can't do it.
Yeah.
In fact, Aaron had to come in and do all the holes except for the first one because I couldn't physically do it.
Yeah. Well, what makes the new drill better is that it's lighter, and you can put the handle coming out the top as opposed to the side. So it's kind of like a right angle with the stud and joist drill, the old one, where it's like a V shape sort of, the way you're holding it.
Yeah.
But with the new one, it's more of a straight line. So you're just kind of straddling it and pushing down on it.
Kind of like a jackhammer.
Yeah, like a
jackhammer look instead of like cradling your body kind of a shape, which is scary. Because like my mom, when she very first tried to use one, she wasn't expecting how fast it would go, and that thing flipped around, hit her in the leg, and took her down.
Yeah.
Like
you have to be strong to use them.
Well, she is, but she wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
So like that's scary, and I don't mind power tools, but it's like a little bit of a fine line.
The new concrete mixer will also take you out if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
I think the way I want to put it is like if you've ever considered yourself to be weak-armed, you have no business operating one of those drills because you will break your wrist. But if you think, well, if you find yourself to be capable, if you're like, oh yeah, I can do that, then you won't have any trouble. But they're definitely not for the faint of heart. I love the new drill. It's super awesome.
Yeah, we should show you guys in a video this week. Florian said, oh my goodness, is this grass that I see in the background? Did I miss the video where they seeded it? Not really. When I went to my grandparents' house and worked in their garden, it was the same day that the Hartley was being installed, part of it, but it was kind of, they were putting in glass panes, and so it was a little bit like, I mean, I could have stayed and watched them, but I don't want to make the guys feel like I'm inspecting everything that they're doing. And anyway, so that was going on. I worked at my grandparents', Aaron was seeding grass, and since we had done a video dedicated to seeding the side strip of grass last fall, it's exactly the same process, so we just decided not to film that process. So anyway, it went in on that day, and it is looking great. In fact, underneath that crabapple tree, where that fence, the iron fence section and Hebe fountain used to be, it's lush under there. Really I saw Russell laying in. I'm like, you got the right idea, because it's beautiful. There are a lot of weeds. We expected that, but our landscaper, Benny, the guy who does all of our irrigation, he's not our landscaper. What do you call him? Our irrigation guy. Yeah, I guess. He said, do not spray those weeds out until you've mowed it 6 times. Just like, trust me, get that grass up and going and so it's not weak, and then start spraying those weeds out, because he's done it before where he's regretted it. By the way, love the wood chips in that part of the garden. It gives a natural woodland feel, and I enjoy the fact that it's different from the rest of your garden. After the first load of chips, I was like, oh, I don't know if I like this. And it's growing on me.
Well, I appreciate that it's free. That's probably my biggest
it's keeping the
thing.
Dust down.
Yeah.
Keeping the weeds down.
Right. And it is organic.
Yeah.
Like it will break down eventually, especially if we throw nitrogen on there.
Yeah.
Every year. Like I think we probably will, like every fall, you think? Throw some nitrogen on there, and then every spring as well. So I think it'll all break down and end up being just a nice... Yeah. It'll feed the soil.
Yeah. Okay, next video was 3 hydrangeas for 2021, update and planting. So I wanted to update you on the quickfire fabs that we planted in the back corner around the red point maple. There are 6 back there. When we planted them last year, they were on the small side. We thought they died. This spring, we were just looking at them and they looked so like piddly and just a little bit like the branches seemed very dainty, and they just came back with a fury. I mean, they just are beautiful, full of leaves, gorgeous green, like no chlorosis problems, and a few of them are just full of blooms, and I never really expect that the first growing season. I always expect them to take a couple of seasons to kind of create root systems, and if we get blooms, that's great, but yeah, I never expect them to perform really, really well until they've been in the ground like 3-ish years. But so we did that, and then I showed you the Limelight Prime little hedge that Aaron and I planted like the day before, maybe it was the day before. We planted 6 of them kind of along one of our new walkways out there, and then in the video we actually planted the, I'm trying to remember all these names, Firelight Tidbits, which only grow 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, and we planted 6, 3 on either side of one of the entry pathways to our cut flower garden, along with some Russian sage. And
that was so much work.
It was like
It was like a dream.
It was
like
a dream.
working in a dream, or like trying to get away, where like nothing works and you can't go fast.
No, and it was the heat. I think it was intense. It was like 100 and. Do you remember? It was over 100 degrees, and it was just like maybe it was right before the storm, and it felt like more muggy or something. We are not used to humidity.
Yeah, it's like we can't handle it. That type of a project seems like it should have taken about like 30 to 45 minutes.
Right.
And what were we out there? Like 4 hours. I couldn't. It's like nothing was working right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, we didn't even break anything.
No,
we didn't even break a pipe or anything.
Although the ground was super hard, I had to aug all the holes twice because I had to use a smaller auger.
Pilot hole.
Yeah, pilot hole, and then
that's what kind of soil
the bigger
we're
hole.
dealing
And
with.
I think that over time, just watering that area,
it does soften it up.
It'll soften it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and that corner right there, I think a lot of machines have been running on that because it was nothing. There was nothing there, and it was kind of a natural curve. So until we really like distinguished our lines, I think that it was being used as kind of a thoroughfare. And so I think they'll be fine. They look great. They haven't skipped a beat. So the rain didn't damage anything out there. So I'm happy. Tony said, Laura, the image of you digging up that redbud tree, literally digging in your heels, is priceless. Thank you both thank you both for all your energy and wonderful videos. You have single-handedly made me a better gardener, and I can proudly say that little bits of my garden, lots of my garden, look like yours. That's awesome.
That's really sweet.
That is really sweet. And yes, I did show you the redbud tree in that video because it's right behind one of the sections of hydrangeas, and it looks amazing. I thought for sure I'd killed it because I had to use a saw on the taproot. I mean, I literally cut that tree apart to get it out of the soil, and it lives on and looks great. Tony said, was it intentional that you wore the exact same outfit in this video as you were wearing in the video that you planted the hydrangeas? They look great, and I can't wait to see them color up. No, it was not intentional, but I should just have a uniform. Well, I kind of do.
Yeah.
Black jeans.
Right.
It might be a slight variation of a black shirt, and it might be a slight variation of jeans. But that's just how I roll in the garden. Like, I don't switch it up for garden work. I mean, I know this is our job and everything, but it's the same as if you guys go out and garden in your yard. That's exactly what I'm doing outside. I mean, maybe I should, since it's on video, maybe I should think about it a little bit more, but I don't really want to waste any energy on that.
You know what? Just do you.
Yeah. Shannon said, couple of questions for you. Does deadweed brew hurt grass? Yes, you would want to use lawnweed brew. And what happened with the 1 plant per pot challenge? You know what? They're actually looking really good. There's a couple of issues. So the littlest pots with the strawberries, I've actually had to replace the strawberries, and they both need to be replaced again. I don't know what's going on with the moisture level seems to be fine. They're not plugged. They're getting water. I don't know though. I've been having a little bit of problem with the strawberries anyway this year that we got. I think it was a weird batch. Not the ones the ones I started from seed are like going strong, and the ones I have in the ground are going strong, but those are just a little bit off. I had to replace the Super Bells. Surprise. I put some Evolvulus Blew My Mind in the place of those. And then one of our Super Tuna fuchsia pots, it's in the biggest pot on the left-hand side of the greenhouse door, is plugged. That pot's plugged, and it's like full of water. I can't really get in there without messing up the drip on all the rest of the pots and like maneuver myself around that pot and figure out how to unplug it. So I don't know. I might just like plant up another fuchsia in a pot and just set it inside there, Aaron.
Really?
Like just so that we have the color and the balance. Sure. But overall, everything's looking really good, and they're filling their pots.
We'll have to do an update video about it sometime.
Yeah. Chris said, looks great. What are the symptoms of an overwatered denim and lace Russian sage? I have some planted, and we have had an unusually high amount of rain earlier this year, and my sage struggled. They got floppy and looked a bit yellowed, dropping more flowers than the previous year. Note, only second year in the ground. They don't look dead at all, just rough, thinking too much water. You're absolutely right. Russian sage will start to yellow pretty quickly if they have too much water, and they also will flop if they have too much water, too much fertilizer, or not enough sun. Gardening with Bridget said, I planted the Limelight Primes this spring when we then had a late frost that killed the tips, so I pruned them back. They aren't blooming, and I'm wondering if I cut the blooms off even though they are panicles, or could it be something else? No, it probably just was that weird late frost. Sometimes that happens. And if it hasn't since you just planted in this spring, I'm guessing they haven't put on a tremendous amount of new growth. They're probably just kind of sitting there, getting used to their spot. So I would just keep treating them, as long as their leaves look healthy and everything, keep treating them nice. And then next year they should put on a really nice show for you. Hopefully that late spring frost doesn't happen again. Either way though, second year they'll be putting on more new growth. So you should be getting blooms even if they get nipped in the spring. Lynn said, just curious, how much rainfall do you get? I love the look of a cottage garden and I love lavenders and some other drought tolerant plants, but I live in Southern California and water is getting to be pretty scarce. So yeah, I've heard, I think I just mentioned earlier, I've heard that we only get 7 to 10 inches. I should just look it up. But I was under the understanding that we got 9 to 11 inches. Not that it really matters. It's just not very much water. So that's what we get for rainfall. We have 2 wells, one that feeds our new property, one that feeds our current property. And we get all of our water from the snowpack in the mountains. So the snowpack, it comes down into the reservoirs. And yeah, and a lot of our irrigation water, we get like our area is heavily agricultural. Tons of farming goes on in here, and so all the water that's piped in to feed all the fields, it then soaks down into the ground and refills aquifers. So like there's a tremendous amount of water, even though it doesn't look like it. Mm-hmm. It's just all under the ground. Jackie said, have you thought about planting a boxwood and having it cut in an animal of some sort? Idea for the new property for Benjamin and Samantha. Yes, I have. I love the whimsy of topiary animals. I have 2 little birds that Benjamin calls them my ducks. When I was trimming them this spring, he said, I like your ducks, Mama. But they're 2 little birds and they're in pots on our brick patio area. And then my mom and she was ordering some topiaries for next spring, and she's ordering some fun stuff for her garden. And I've always wanted, after we went to Levin's Holland Garden in England, it was one of my favorite gardens. It felt so whimsical and so magical, and there was tons of topiary. And one of the areas, I think we could pop a picture up on the screen, and there was different pathways going through a part of their garden. And if you look down like the main pathway where you could, turn off from, there was an elephant topiary that looked like it was starting to take a step down one of the pathways. And it was like, I don't know, like waist high or so. It was like a little baby elephant. And that just struck me. I just loved that so much, and I've wanted something like that. But the place that she was ordering from had elephants, but they didn't look quite like what I wanted. So I don't know if it's something that I don't know if I've got the talent to create an animal topiary like that. I think I would want to buy one. Start with it pre-done. But that might be kind of a fun project to start, like when the kids are young, and start working on it and have them help. That might be a really fun thing to work on together. Betsy said, ooh, whose corn is that behind you? So at the very beginning of the video, we were standing by that corner, the southwest corner of our property, and right behind there's an empty lot that actually, it belongs to our neighbor that we bought the field from. They actually bought all the lots that line the back of their property, I think, so that nobody built houses there. I'm not really sure how all that worked. Anyway, the house that's right there behind the fence, they asked if they could. They're retired farmers, and they asked if they could farm, or not farm, but put in a little community garden for the neighborhood back here, which is so awesome. This stuff looks amazing. The corn, I'm gonna actually ask him about his corn, because we had this huge deluge of rain and it knocked a bunch of my corn down. His is all standing up beautifully, and there's something I'm doing wrong. So I'm gonna ask him, tell me how you do this to where it's gotta be something simple that I can change so I don't have to stake my corn up. But they've got beautiful bean plants and zucchini and pumpkins in there. And I'm still gonna invite all of the ladies to come pick flower. They didn't grow any flowers, but to come pick flowers in our space. Anyway, it's just so fun to see that happening, and so healthy, all the stuff. From the Garden said, this is off topic, but what is the butternut squash you love that you planted last year and maybe the year before? For some reason, I can't find the video. It was called honey nut butternut. They are looking great out in our garden right now. They're kind of like individual sized butternuts. They're not like the big standard ones, which I kind of appreciate. It's kind of fun to just cut it in half, get the seeds out, and bake them whole like that. And then you can just put a whole half on your plate, and it's not this enormous thing. It's just this perfect little personal sized butternut squash. And the taste, they were so sweet. I baked them, I put them in soups, I put them in pasta dishes, and I loved it any way we had them. They actually stored really well too. Okay, last video was from this morning actually. We've changed how we're treating yellowing foliage and it's working. So, throughout the years we've done different videos on how we're dealing with chlorosis problems or iron deficiency in our plants. It's one of our biggest issues, that and spider mites. But it's because of our high pH. High pH soils, the alkalinity binds up nutrients in the soil and makes them unavailable to the plants. So the plants aren't getting the proper nutrition, even if it's actually in the soil. It's just so high pH, plants can't use it. So it's just something we deal with on those chlorosis-prone plants like maples, hydrangeas. I think I showed pussy willow, peony, spirea. I showed a hibiscus that has a severe problem right now. I mean, it can crop up all over the place. Anyway, we started using, or Aaron, I should say, this has kind of been his project this year. He's been diligent with chelated iron and he's been researching the different types of chelated iron, and we learned that the EDDHA chelated iron is good for high pH soils. It's actually good for all soils, so from pH 4 to 10. There's another type of chelated iron out there called EDTA, which is better in lower pH areas. So I think it starts dropping off in stability after the pH 6, so anything over 6 I don't think it's as stable in. So while you might be buying chelated iron, you need to check the label to see if it's EDTA or EDDHA. Anyway, so we went through some of the products that we've been using and showed how we apply it, and it's really been working. And I feel like even though I explained it's a Band-Aid approach, it's a quick in and out, it's a synthetic, it's a altered form of iron so that it's a type of iron that the plants can take up, as opposed to a slower, more organic approach, which I still think we're still doing that, iron tone soil acidifier, but it's a slow process. But we want to get the soil to a point to where the soil is healthy enough that maybe if the pH comes down enough to unlock some of those nutrients so the plants can utilize them. Anyway, it gets kind of intense learning all of these things. I mean, it's really interesting because while you are like dumping stuff on plants and you're thinking, why isn't this working? Iron's supposed to, the label says it'll fix the problem. Well, it may or may not, depending on the other issues going on. Whew, anyway, that was a lot of information, sorry. You could just watch the video for all of that. Zio said, such a lot of great information packed into 12 minutes. I don't deal with chlorosis, but I still find this very useful information, which is awesome. Thank you very much. I know that, it's hard to, because everybody's dealing with such different issues. Like occasionally on a different note, we get videos from people saying, would you please do a video for gardening in zone 10? I don't garden in zone 10, so it's really hard to speak on that. It's also hard to speak on those of you who live in a zone 3 or, have very acidic soil. I don't really know all the nuances that brings. Like I could tell you what I know, what I've heard, but like actual experience, I garden in high desert, high pH. So I kind of try to emphasize that, like, you may need to adjust what you're doing, but this is what we're doing here. Anyway, I don't know why I said all that. KBH said, I've always wondered about watering in the fertilizers and amendments when the irrigation is drip line. Is the one-time watering in enough? How long do you spray the area? We spray it for quite a long time. We just water. Sometimes we'll just set a sprinkler on it for 30 minutes. Just put a low sprinkler on the area and just let that water kind of push down the amendments, and then the drip line takes off after that. Maureen said, how old are your Gnophofia? So I have some flashpoint Gnophofia in that area that are really beautiful, and I think they're 3 or 4 years old. I'd have to look up to see exactly when they are planted, but they are several seasons old at this point. Robin said, oh yeah, I recognize those yellow leaves and the crispy ones. It's so odd that the plants next to my hydrangea are beautiful, but the hydrangea, not so much. I understand that. Because I think it has to do with plants that are more prone to it too, I started applying the iron tone as soon as I realized what was going on, and I can see some green leaves coming out from the base of the plant, so I know it's working. But since you mentioned the chelated iron, I've also been trying that. I have other areas too, just the same. One plant looks great, the next plant look like right next door to it. Ick, so weird. How often are you applying? Did I miss that? A lot of you guys asked that. We apply it on an as-needed basis. A lot of times with smaller, less severe problems, it's you treat it once and you're good to go. And on some of those things where we know we've had an issue, especially like the big red point maple, we'll probably be applying it preventatively, but I would say once a season, and then if you notice an issue start cropping up, get right on it and do it again. For something that's severe like that Rosa Sharon, you know, I added a little bit of extra in. Instead of just the 1 teaspoon, I did 2 teaspoons, and we'll watch it for the next probably 2-3 weeks, see what happens. If it's just like kind of halfway rebounded at that point, I'll probably give it a full month. If it's not fully rebounded or not rebounded enough, I'll probably give it another application. You just kind of have to gauge it depending on what's going on. Sharon said, watching your videos out in the new space, I have not seen you add the iron tone or soil acidifier to the holes you have dug for the new trees and plants. Wouldn't that help them with the iron issues? Yes, I mean, absolutely would. We do the biotone in Land and Sea. Land and Sea is more of an acidic based compost anyway, so we're feeling like that's helping with the soil pH. We do the iron tone and soil acidifier in the spring. We go through kind of like it's part of our fertilizer regimen, and we apply that kind of broadly across our garden, and then we do it again probably early fall is when we'll do it. So it's kind of like our routine, what we do, and then when we plant stuff, it's always the starter fertilizer and Land and Sea. So, I mean, yeah, you could probably hit it with all the things all at the same time if you wanted to. But typically too, with the iron, especially if it's stuff that doesn't normally have the issues, we don't treat it if it doesn't need it. Naughty Moose said, great video. I'm going to share this with so many people. Awesome. Thank you. Question, does it matter what time of year you apply iron? Well, you need to apply, if you want to expect to see something happening, you want to apply it when the tree or the plant is actively growing. So spring, you know, doing it again in the fall, early fall is probably good. I mean, you could apply it at any point, but just knowing that, you know, during the winter months, they're not really actively taking up a whole bunch of stuff into their system, and the roots are still working. But I don't know, Aaron had to run out real quick, but he might have learned something different about that, in which case I'll ask him and we will like jump back in and let you know if there's something different. But usually with amendments, we apply at a time where the tree can actively use it. Benjamin said, I'm not sure, but I feel like I've watched a video of them sending in soil samples. Did we ever get the results back? Yes, we will link that video down below. Judy Anderson said, where can you get the bagged EDDHA iron? I didn't see it listed. We'll double check. I think that it was listed, but I think a lot of it's sold out at this point. We get it at my parents' garden center, so I definitely check your local garden center first, because they probably have it sitting on their shelf. We just always supply a link just in case. Oh no, I see a 1 pound chelated EDDHA iron for $31.99. There's 4 left in stock. So by the time, we'll put links down below, and hopefully they've restocked by the time this video goes out. Kathy said, how late in the summer do I want to keep feeding my annuals? We keep feeding them right until we're about ready to pull them out, because those annuals use so much feed to stay really nice and beautiful that you want to keep feeding them. And usually, I think Proven Winners on their tub, they have a sticker on there that says they recommend feeding every 3rd watering, which for us, that's not a sustainable practice for us. We just can't do it that much. So they get once a week here at our house. But I mean, in the fall, you think about it, if it's every 3rd watering, once it gets cooler, you're not watering near as often. So it might not be every week. It might be every 10 days or whatever, based on how often you're watering. AV Farm said, you have mentioned in other videos that Aaron has also applied the iron as a foliar spray, maybe for a quicker absorption. Can you elaborate on that? You know what, he did that. He tried several plants and he found that it tended to stain things and it wanted to burn things a little bit too. And maybe it wasn't mixed quite properly. I think it is. He's pretty diligent. He's not in here even to defend himself, but he is really good at doing things properly. So I can't think that it was not mixed up right, but there was some burning that happened and there was some overspray that stained fences and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think he's had just as good or better luck putting the chelated iron around the base of the plant. Star Song said, what does chlorosis look like on a plant with dark green leaves, or dark leaves rather, not green, dark leaves like purple or red? You know, actually I have a really good example in our greenhouse. I'll run out there and take a little video, but there's some Alternanthera out there. Some look very healthy and some definitely are showing some chlorosis. Typically they'll lighten up quite a bit and they'll actually get, like, these are typically like a deep red green, and some of them look almost like a brighter version, like a bright pink. with some veining. I don't know, but you'll see when I show you the example. Aisha said, are those beautiful rocks lining the flower bed real? Yes, they are very real. They were there when we moved in. In fact, that area is really interesting under the golden rain tree. So when we moved in, there was the rocks and big chunky bark. We removed the bark, we planted some things. There is landscape fabric in there, but it is really low. It's kind of like that landscape fabric was put in like 10 inches ago. And then lots of other things, like there's almost like sand on top of it, like a thick layer of sand. And then there was several layers of different types of mulch. It's a really interesting area to plant in. You know, we have hostas in there now. I put chocolate drop coleus that look absolutely gorgeous. But every time I plant in a new spot, I'm always getting a bunch of landscape fabric like twirling up on my auger. But yeah, those rocks were there. And last question, Sarah said, would you recommend the EDDHA iron chelate 6% in nursery shrubs and trees that are showing signs of chlorosis? Yes, as long as they're on a surface that you don't mind the water coming out. So like we have potted things in our high tunnels out there on the new property, some of which are really chlorotic. Very much so iron deficient, or were. And Erin has been treating those. I think in that case, especially if it's severe, the water and stuff doesn't stick around in those pots quite as long as in the soil, because of course a lot of that water is just going out of the container. So you may need to apply more for a situation like that, just due to the fact that you're losing some of it. But, and then, you know, of course out there, they're sitting on gravel, so I don't mind if the water with the iron comes out onto the gravel, because it's not gonna hurt anything. It's not like it's sitting on a beautiful concrete patio or something where it's gonna stain and be a sad deal. So anyway, just be mindful of that. And that's it, you guys, for today's recap video. Thank you so much for watching. It actually looks like it's going to be a nicer week for us. I mean, it's incredibly humid out there today for us anyway, 67% when I was planting this morning. I thought I was going to die. And then we have tomorrow supposed to be 102. It was, yeah. And then after that, it looks like low 90s and high 80s, which is going to be awesome. So we're going to be kind of starting our shift into fall stuff. I actually have some fall plants already. I'm a little bit tentative on putting them out, but I'm getting ready, and I'm excited this year. I'm so excited and ready for a change of season. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.